So good morning. So second class today. Am I audible to all? Can you confirm? Arnab, can you confirm that I am audible?
Yes, sir, you
Yes,
are audible.
Okay, fine. Fine. So yesterday we have just introduced the course, and we were here. Uh, Basically the course content and books, everything we represented. So since we said that basically the quantum photonic devices or technology, that is nothing but devices working with single and entangled photon pairs. So frankly speaking, this photons, whenever it generates and detection happens, that is actually perfect quantum mechanic phenomena. And then when you want to manipulate the quantum states, you will be using most of the time the classical devices. So whatever the classical components, devices, circuits used for integrated photonics or photonic integrated circuits, same type of devices you will be using. So, so to understand how they are useful for quantum state manipulation, we need to understand those components also, how they work classically. Okay. So once we know how they work classically, then we can directly relate it that what could be the outcome for a quantum performance, and we can also make some kind of differences, what different type of aspects and characteristics you should consider, that will be there. So to understand classical things, I also think that you should have classical knowledge also. So the classical knowledge means light. Light is an electromagnetic wave, you know. So I am trying to today I will be giving some kind of what you call that, some kind of recap. Most of you know about it: Maxwell's equations, light waves, electromagnetic waves. If you also know, that is fine, but it is, you can consider this as a recap, just a recapitulation. And those who are not knowing also gets take some opportunity to learn also. And most of the things I will be presenting today, they are available in any basic textbook on electromagnetic fields. So when we talk about electromagnetic waves, that actually starts with Maxwell's equations. So you know, before that, this optics, light wave known for a long time, and it's not that after Maxwell you started using your. So let me see, someone is trying to join. Okay, before Maxwell's, it was actually the thing people used light wave for different type of scientific applications, engineering also, optical sciences. It's a kind of about more than 1,000 years story. But most of the mathematical aspects and which is actually celebrated till today is the Maxwell's equations. So from Maxwell's equations, we understand the light wave as an electromagnetic wave, and then from that actually you can also easily move into quantum aspects of the photons. From this Maxwell's equations, whatever property aspects you explain in the electromagnetic wave or light wave, all sorts of classical phenomena like diffraction, interference, polarization, all those type of thing you could explain. At the same time, we will try to show that this Maxwell's equation can be a little bit modified to understand the quantum nature of the light wave. So, James Clerk Maxwell's, I think the famous 4 equations, I think you see in this plaque, I think some story written when it was discovered and how it was discovered, and that 4 celebrated equations. First 2 equations are called basically Gauss divergence theorem formula, and then third one, this curl of E equal to minus del B by del T. That is actually your so-called Faraday law. And then fourth one is the another curl equation, curl of magnetic field. And that actually originally it was known as Ampere's circuital law, curl of H equal to J. J is nothing but conduction current density. And Maxwell added this part, del D del T, that is actually called T is the displacement vector. Rate of change of displacement vector is called as a displacement current. So he introduced this thing actually to understand the light wave as an electromagnetic wave. So just all these things you can understand, you can learn everything from your textbook, but here the important aspects I will just try to present in front of you here. So this electrical displacement vector D, it's a vector, it's nothing but so-called epsilon 0 times electric field vector plus polarization. So this polarization is nothing but actually dipole moment per unit volume. When any material system is undergoing through a electric field, you know it is a vector, then some dipole moments originates. You know, any material you can think of, it's a combination of atoms, molecules, and then electrons are loosely attached outside the nucleus. And then because of the electric field and electronic negative charge, you can expect some kind of dipole moment if those electrons are not free at all. So that dipole moment also creates some kind of dipole moment, you know, it creates also a kind of electric field. So that thing, if you add together with the E, then you define that as a displacement vector D. So in this sense, you can think that this displacement vector actually is a first equation. You are trying to understand how electric field interacts with the material. So if there is a material medium, this P will be present, otherwise this P will not be present. So basically that it says. Okay, and this if you just try to little bit expand this P, is nothing but you can express as epsilon 0 chi, that is called chi, called electrical susceptibility times E. So that means you just take a epsilon 0 factor, then 1 plus chi and times electric field. And then again this 1 plus chi, this susceptibility plus 1, whatever it is there originally coming from the electric field, and then you express that as a epsilon r. That is, you know, as a relative permittivity. So epsilon 0 and epsilon r together you can express as a epsilon of the material medium. If it is free space, this epsilon r, that means this chi will be equal to 0, epsilon r will be equal to 1. So for free space, even for air, sometimes we can consider this epsilon r equal to 1. And epsilon 0 value, you know, that is actually nothing but 8.85 10 to the power minus 12 farad per meter. You can identify the unit here. This is a farad per meter, means capacitance, right? Farad is the capacitance, unit of capacitance per meter. That means it's kind of distributed capacitance of the medium. Even if it is free space also can be expressed like a some kind of distributed capacitance. You learned that capacitance in electrical circuits, right? So you can, whenever electric field is there in the free space or material medium, you should have some kind of this capacitive effect. That capacitive effect means nothing but capacitance. What does it do? it stores some energy, electrostatic energy, right? And in a circuit high frequency cases, you just use it as a filter. So it high frequency passes, and DC it will block. And polarization vector, this additional polarization vector, which is actually accounted for the material interaction with the electric field, that can be decomposed into two terms called PL plus PNL. L means linear, and another term is non-linear. So nothing, if you are just applying something, some force on a certain system, here it is a material system, so you cannot expect everything is always can be explained linearly, that if you increase the value, if you add some value, that means output also proportional to that addition of that value. It's not like that. It is kind of non-linearity is there, but many cases we will approximate that up to what extent you can use linear, and up to what extent it is non-linear. So beyond certain value you can consider non-linear. So this is the thing. Whenever necessary, we will be including this PNL. Otherwise, we can just ignore for linear cases.
Sir?
Okay. Yes.
So the PNL, would it be specifically for the quadratic part, or anything above the linear order?
Anything above linear order. It can be quadratic. It can be just power of 3, 4, 5, so on. It can all the things. So depending on the material, you have to include that. And
but would it be only one coefficient, or like it can have multiple coefficients?
It will have a multi. You can it's like any nonlinear thing, around a certain value, you can just expand in Taylor series.
Right.
So it's a Taylor series means all the higher order differentiations, differential coefficients will be there. So there are multiple coefficients, of course.
Okay.
Fine. So that is actually this chi is susceptibility, I said. And rho, if there is some kind of charge density is there, this rho comes in divergence D equal to rho. Rho means actually volume charge density. If there is any charge at all, normally any material, that is actually neutral. Total number of negative charge, total number of positive charge, they are equal. But you can engineer the material in a certain way. Locally, you can create some charge or inject some charge. Okay, so in that case, if charge is there, then divergence D, that you will get some kind of divergence. That means D, displacement vector, will be getting, if you take divergence, it will be non-zero. Otherwise, it will be zero. If rho is zero, that divergence will be. That means total, if you consider D as a electric flux, then I think total number of flux coming in and total number of flux going out, that should be equal. In that case, divergence equal to 0. If the flux coming in is less than the flux density, flux lines going out, that means some kind of charge is there. So depending on the positive charge, negative charge, that will be also divergence D will be also positive or negative. And similarly, if material is actually magnetic medium, so if there is a magnetic field is there, you can actually represent this magnetic field, how it behaves inside the material, with another term called B, called magnetic flux density. It is equivalent to D for electric field. Okay, that is also similarly we explain mu0 1 plus, in this case susceptibility, I just put subscript M. That is actually for magnetic purpose, and your magnetic field strength H. H is, dimension of E and H, I don't need to tell you that electric field dimension is, I think, volt per meter, and magnetic field is the ampere per meter. So one is the per unit length, how much volt potential difference, that actually measures the electric field, and magnetic field is the current per unit length, and so on. And similarly, mu0, mu r, in this case, mu r is the permittivity, relative permittivity. So epsilon r is the relative permeability. Epsilon r is the permittivity and mu r is the permeability, relative permeability. So permeability in free space 4 pi into 10 to the minus 7 Henry per meter. So again you see here the unit is Henry per meter. That means Henry is the unit of inductor, right? Inductance is there. So free space also you can consider it is a combination of kind of, you can express like a distributed inductor. It's as a whole, it is a inductor thing is there. So that means in case of electric field, we can have material medium, something like that. The capacitive effect is there, which is distributed across the whole medium. Similarly, if there is a magnetic field, then you can think of that there is also kind of inductor type characteristics is there, right? So this, you know, any inductor means it can store energy in terms of magnetic field. So if there is a current is there, then you can say that how much energy is stored here. Suppose in a coil, I current is there, and then depending on the coil property, etc., we define L inductance. Then energy is half Li square, all those type of things. You know that. So here, what I'm saying that even if it is free space or material medium, you can actually make some kind of analogy with the whatever circuit elements, inductor, capacitor, everything is there. Okay, you can consider. And in a circuit element, besides capacitor and inductor, they are actually so-called active element. But also you use some passive element called resistor, right? So material medium can also have some kind of distributed parameter like that, the resistor or so-called conductance. So here you have conductivity, okay, sigma. So if there is a sigma, then you know the current density, that means current flowing per unit area, that is must be vector. That if you just a little bit decompose from the Ohm's law, then this J or current density can be expressed as sigma times electric field. So whatever you know in the circuit point of view, your material medium is also having all similar sort of element, distributed element like mu, epsilon, sigma. So material to material, these three things actually varies. And if you know the values of these three of any material, then you should be able to explain how electric field and magnetic field behaves there. Okay, so all these parameters coming into your Maxwell's equations. Okay, so Maxwell's equation is nothing but you are just trying to understand how electric field and magnetic field independently or combined present in a material medium, how they are related and how they are distinguished from one material medium to another material medium. If you try to see the four equations, first two equations, they are independent. That's a first one is the displacement vector and charge, and then magnetic field divergence. That means B, divergence B equal to 0, because that is typically we know there is no monopole magnetic pole is there. So that's why divergence B equal to 0. Always there is a north pole, south pole. This is a combined thing. Always you can consider. But there are advanced technique. People are saying that okay, we can isolate one monopole and we can treat that thing. But we will not go into that details here. We don't need that. Okay. But this third and fourth equation, you see that they are actually coupled. And not only coupled, there is a time varying part is there also. So rate of change of magnetic field means you can see some kind of rotation of electric field. So that means magnetic field, if somewhere is there and it is changing with time, so you can expect some electric field will be there. Similarly, fourth equation also you see, apart from your DC current density J, if there is a displacement vector, is a rate of change of displacement vector is there, then you can see that magnetic field will be generated there. Okay, magnetic field always there. If it is current is there, magnetic field is there. But even if a displacement vector is changing or electric field is rate of change of electric field is there, then also that will contribute to the magnetic field also with a rotation relationship. Okay, this is all Maxwell's equation, it says, and nothing, you don't need to worry about it's a very difficult maths to understand, something like that. Only thing is that you have to understand this equation and what are their interpretations. That much is good enough. So you don't need to worry, because any electromagnetic field book, if you just open, I think sometimes because of this divergence, all those type of things, if you see, sometimes all the mathematics you may be afraid of that, but it's you don't need to have that one. Only you need to know a little bit of vector algebra and vector differentiation, and you have to understand what the rotation means, curl means, and what is the divergence means. That's it, nothing else. So divergence means, you can just think about divergence can be if you take a volume integral, that can come into surface integral with a flux, right? So that normally whenever you are representing D and B as a flux lines, so you can easily understand that. So if you know this is very good, it will be helpful to understand everything. If you don't know this, or maybe you have learned a bit forgotten, I suggest that you go through once more any textbook, and if you have any questions and or maybe some doubt, it is not very much clear from the textbook, and you can just interact with our TAs also. They can explain. Also, you can write to me. I will try to answer also. Okay. So this is all Maxwell's equation. With one slide I just explained. So this actually, I must tell that when Maxwell's introduced this equation in 1865, I guess 1865. So almost 150 years ago. So that time he has not given these formulas in this form, because that time this vector calculus was not invented. So he represented all these equations in terms of integral, very complex integral, so many parameters he has used. I think, I remember if you originally read that paper, I think there are more or less 35 equations he used. Later on, because of the vector calculus, invention of vector calculus, etc., then it is combined, compact. Any textbook, if you see, it's a nice form. But it is a story of 150 years. Okay. So now we will try to understand that how these Maxwell's equations give rise to electromagnetic waves, electromagnetic waves, how you can express, how you can get a solution for electromagnetic waves. That means electromagnetic means itself that there will be some kind of electric field, magnetic field. As you see from the Maxwell's equation, they are coupled. Then if some coupled thing is there, what would be the nature? Electric field is there, magnetic field is there, and they're coupled. That means rate of change of one field give rise to other field. So and vice versa. So this type of thing. So first of all, we try to understand in the free space where no material is there. No material is there means we can easily consider these three parameters we will be targeting to characterize the material. First one is the permittivity, relative permittivity, epsilon r equal to 1 if it is free space. Mu r, of course, free space means non-magnetic, that is 1, and free space charge will be 0, and conductivity will be, it will be super insulator, right? No conductance, no electrons, no carrier can conduct any current. So these are the characteristics for the free space. Now if you just take the first curl equation, curl of E equal to minus del B del T, right? The previous slide, if you just see Maxwell's equation, and that equation, if you just take both sides, another curl. I hope you know what is this nabla, this triangular nabla symbol. It is there. What does it mean? In I will just explain later. It is actually so-called differentiation is there. So I will just come to that point. Before that, you just think that it in Cartesian coordinate it will have three components. So in the x direction, how it will be changing, rate of change in the x direction, spatial rate of change, del del x, and y direction it will have del del y, and z direction del del z. This Cartesian coordinate will be sufficient to understand for our entire course. will not consider any times any spherical coordinates or cylindrical coordinates. But any textbook, if certain problem comes, sometimes that type of situation helps to analyze things. But here you understand this nebula is just a vector. So that vector is comprised of three component, that is actually partial derivative del del x, del y. So any vector, if you are taking curl, that means you can consider A cross B, something like that. You have to treat them. So something here, curl of E is the Maxwell's equation, and right hand side will be del B del T, and free space mu are equal to 1. So mu 0 will be there. Both side, if you take a curl, okay, first curl equation, you are taking both side curl. Since curl is a spatial derivative is there, it involves spatial derivative, we can actually take inside the time derivative. H is there, del t, that means mu 0, if you multiply, that would be del b. So this side you take, you just getting curl, and this side also you are taking curl. I hope you can follow my marker, na? So if you have some doubt, you can just stop, ask me also. Okay, since we are going through that, if you have any doubt also, it should be clarified. So now left hand side, it's kind of three vectors cross product, A cross B cross C, right? So this A cross B cross C, you know, this vector identity, if you do, then you get this thing. So divergence of E and gradient, we consider this one, and then minus grad square E. And right hand side, if you just think that curl of H is the fourth curl equation of the Maxwell's equation. If you see, curl of H is equal to del D del T J. Sigma, since sigma equal to 0, we have to ignore that one, and del D del T is epsilon 0 and epsilon r equal to 1, of course, then del T. So we just replace this curl H equal to epsilon 0 del E del T, that means second order derivative, partial derivative here. Okay, this is the ultimately, if you take curl of the both side and you take help of the fourth curl equation, second curl equation, then you come to this point. Now you know this divergence E, again, if you just a little bit look here, divergence D equal to 0, rho equal to 0 here, the Maxwell's equation here. So in that case, I would say that when rho equal to 0 and D equal to epsilon times E, then I think it would be your so-called divergence E will be equal to 0, and so you get this thing, curl square E, divergence D0, that means this one will be, so this equation boils down to this one. Okay, so it can be just written like del square E is the electric field, and this. So in this way, actually what we did, we actually decoupled the electric field and magnetic field. So in this equation only you have electric field. So they are decoupled, and you get a independent equation for electric field. But you can also get simultaneously in the same process, if you take curl for the second curl equation, and then you come up with the similar equation for the magnetic field as well. So this equation 1 and 2, they, though electric field and magnetic field are coupled, but you could separate them like kind of separation of variable type things. So you can have electric field equation like this, differential equation for electric field, of course vector, you have to deal with vectors. Okay, and del square, you can imagine that because del is the vector, del square means del dot del, so it's kind of scalar. So it is basically del square del x2 plus del square del y2 plus del square del z2. So something I think, even though I'm not writing, I think you can follow this thing. So here also this thing, where we have used this c square, you just for the moment you consider c is used mu 0 epsilon 0, and mu 0 epsilon 0, if you just put down and all the dimension, it will come like 300,000 kilometer per second. Okay, for a homogeneous isotopic, non-dispersive and linear dielectric medium. So we are considering linear now. The wave equation differs only by its velocity. So whenever, if it is a material medium, suppose instead of mu 0 you have mu, epsilon 0, you have epsilon. That means you have mu r, epsilon r present. Okay, so in that case, this C will be replaced by C by square root of mu r epsilon r. Okay, if it is a homogeneous medium, homogeneous material, it is a free space. I just explained till now it is a free space. But if it is a homogeneous medium with certain dielectric constant is there and certain what you call that permittivity is there, permittivity is there other than 0, then you can write this thing. And for a non-magnetic dielectric material, of course, mu r equal to, I think this is a mistake here. It should not be mu r equal to mu naught. It should be mu r equal to 1. Okay, if it is a non-magnetic material. So this has to be corrected. Okay. So fine. So we have this equation. You just picturize these two equations now in your brain. That equation 1 and equation 2 is the equation for either for a free space or for a homogeneous material medium, isotropic. So everywhere a property are, at least electrical and magnetic field point of view, everywhere their property are uniform, and so on. Okay, now, okay, this is a little bit of congested things, but you don't need to worry. Just follow line by line, you will understand what I mean. Earlier I said that this del is a vector. I just represented here. It's a unit vector ax, ay, az along 3 Cartesian coordinate things. And then electric field you consider that is actually kind of a vector, right? This is the electric field. And you know that electric field actually it can be in certain situation, it can be actually space dependent. Different point, of course, depending on the situation, surrounding boundary condition, etc. The electric field not only a vector, but it depends on the position x, y, z. And since we are actually involving a time varying system, time varying things, so it must be a time dependent. Okay, so if you just consider it as a vector at any point x, y, z and at any instant of time t, you can, that particular point, that particular instant, you can decompose the electric field into 3 orthogonal components. Ex along x direction, Ey, Ez. If you just consider at a particular coordinate x, y, z at particular instant, if you know what is the x component, what is the y component, what is the z component at that coordinate x, y, z and that instant, then you just know all the 3 components are there. You can actually find what is the actual electric field at that coordinate. Similarly, magnetic field here. Okay, now we will do a little bit of, to understanding purpose, to understanding the Maxwell's equation, we will do a little bit of simplification here. That, but without loss of generality, we will not compromise anything with the physics. Okay, so we will just compromise that. Let us consider a one-dimensional space-time. For the moment, you can be a little bit blind that one dimension means. Let us consider it is only z direction. So you are constant to z direction only. X direction and y direction, what is happening, you just forget for the moment. Okay, it's just one-dimensional case. X direction, or you can think of that x direction and y direction, it is invariant. Nothing is changing. Okay, that thing if you just consider, because it is a vector anyway, right? Electric field vector and magnetic field vector, and it's a space dependent. I can always consider that, well, only z direction change is there. Okay, and since it is a vector, we can consider Ex is non-zero. That means electric field is only along x direction. We can safely just put down Uy equal to 0, Ez equal to 0. Nothing wrong. Just for understanding purpose. Practically it cannot be, it may not be. Okay, I just idealize my situation. So if this is the case, then what you have, since Ex equal to 0 and it is also one dimensional case, so partial derivative with respect to x for the electric field is 0. Partial derivative with respect to y also 0. So that in that direction, I just consider nothing is happening. Okay, constant we can consider. Then we have equation for electric field now. Now you come back to that equation 1 and 2, and you now imagine that you have only x component is there and spatial dependence only z is there. Variation is along z direction, but vector component is along x direction. You should not confuse with that ex means electric field is x dependent. No, it is a direction. It's a field direction. It varies only along z. That is what is our assumption, and varies as a function of time, of course. And since del x del y equal to 0, this equation, if you see this one, this is a combination of del square means you have del 2 del x2 del 2 del y2 del 2 del z2. So out of that, these two, since this 2 0, only the z dependent partial derivative, second order derivative will present here. So you get a very simple equation. And in this equation, you just think that though electric field is a vector, but we have only considered a particular component in Cartesian coordinate system. Equation 3 can be considered as a scalar now, right? So you know that only one direction. It's not position to position. Your direction is not changing. As you change your z position, the electric field direction, it's always x component will be there. So you can consider it's like a second order partial derivative for the electric field. It's a kind of approximation though. Okay, it's just assumption, and this type of assumption you can actually create. You can create a boundary condition such that only these things are possible. Okay, so corresponding solution for this equation 3. If you just think a bit before jumping into equation 4, just think a bit about equation 3 and try to guess. You know, any differential equation, you have to just assume certain kind of solution, and then you have to insert back into differential equation and try to find the constants with boundary condition, then ultimate solutions you get. So if you just a little bit look into that equation 3, okay, it is actually gives you, it's called basically a kind of so-called wave equation, and these solutions can be considered as a plane traveling wave and polarized along x-axis. Polarized means the direction of electric field. It's called polarization. So if you say that what is the polarization, it is x polarized. You have to say, because only x component is there, right? If it is y, then ey is there, then you would say that it is a y polarized thing. So polarization can be considered like that. And the solution of this can be in this form, equation 4. You see, C is there, and your solution must be time dependent or z dependent. And the solution can be two different combination of either maybe first term a function of ct minus z or function of g ct plus z. So if you just, I think you can try that. If you are just considering this as a solution and replace here and try to see, and you will find that this can be a solution. Also you can find this can be also a solution. Okay. So anything, it can be any function, any form of function, that should be a function of ct minus z or ct plus z. If it is a material medium, c will be replaced by v. Here also v. So it's a, f and g are two functions, only they are differed by ct minus z and ct plus z. Both are actually function of this, solution of this. You can prove. F can be sine function, g can be cos function, or f can be exponential some complex function, but that should be a function of ct minus z and ct plus z. Then it will be a solution, of course. Whether that solution is a feasible or not, that is a different issue we'll discuss. But mathematically, equation 4 gives a solution for 3. Any function of ct minus z, any function of ct plus z, they are solutions. So we consider that, let us assume that the solution is both solutions are present. So we can consider a combined solution is fct minus z and this one. Similarly, if we can show that similar, because your equation 2, if you just imagine in the previous slide, that is a magnetic field, there also you can assume that, and Maxwell's equation if you use, and if you just think that only Ex component is there and Uy component is not there, Ez component is not there, then if you just try to see this Maxwell's equation, Curl equation, if you try to see that here j equal to 0 and here only X component is there, then you try to find out what component of H field will be there. And you should remember that it is actually considered as a Z dependent variation is there. In that case, this only you will find that Y component, if it is there, then it satisfies the equation 1 and 2. Y component of the magnetic field, and that is also should be Z dependent and time dependent. Okay, so that solutions will be same like 4, but it will be scaled by eta. Eta is called intrinsic impedance, and it is mu 0 by epsilon 0. So all these things are there in the textbook, how to come up, but I think I am just trying to explain how you should come up that thing and what is their interpretation. So electric field of this kind and magnetic field also same function, but only scaled down. So value is different, but unit also different. And you see, if you are considering electric field is in the X direction, then following those equation, you have to consider that only Y component of the H will be existing in this case. Clear? So now I try to give a nice sketch here. So far we don't know this electric field, what kind of function it is. It's a function of ct minus z, whether it is a sine function or it is a just combination of different sine functions. We don't know that. It can be anything, any periodic, it will be considered like a periodic thing. It's called traveling wave. If you just try to see that as time passes, you have to have z has to be changed also, because c is a constant. So certain direction you have to consider, plus in this case minus consider as a some disturbance propagating in the positive direction, positive z direction, and ct plus z. You can show that it is actually disturbance in the negative z direction. Okay, so that is what I tried to generalize here in my own word. It can be shown that the function, this one represent electromagnetic wave, because this ct minus z function that involves both in electric field and magnetic field, and we can call that as a signal st traveling in positive z direction, whereas gct plus z represent the signal represent traveling in minus z direction, both with a velocity c in free space and in material medium or homogeneous medium. If you consider that is a v is there. Here it is shown like that. If there is a signal at certain instant of time, if you see that some kind of fluctuation, this is a source, for example, right? And that type of signal that can be electric field and magnetic field is there. It can be this shape. Okay. Now this axis is showing as a time axis, right? And if time passes from certain instant of time, then you will see that this function fct minus z function that actually pulls the entire shape towards right, positive z axis. Okay, it is shown that for example at plus z1, what would be the value? Whatever function is there, the shape of the function, you just put in that function, c is a constant and value is z1, and that particular instant it is t1. Now at z2 it will appear, but after a certain time, that is actually time instance is t2. And if I try to find out what is the value at z2 at certain other time t2, you can get this one. So this will be this. That means if you see from this point to this point, it travels with a velocity c, and that separation Z1 to Z2, that actually depends on time, how much time it elapsed. That is the positive direction. So any disturbance of electromagnetic pulse or signal that will be traveling in this direction without changing its shape. Okay, it is free space we are considering. Similarly, from that source, this disturbance also can travel in the negative direction. We are only considering one dimension, positive or negative. So this direction, when it is moving at any point of time, at any position, if I want to find out what is the value, that function, we just put this one, just coordinate we put, get this thing. So you see the shape is moving this direction and this direction, both direction it can move. So one is called the wave, so-called wave, traveling in the positive direction and traveling in the negative direction. It can be actually, this is a signal, time-dependent signal. If you just try to follow your understanding of Fourier analysis, you see this is a shape, right? You can just do Fourier transform, then you can decompose into different harmonics, right? So all the harmonics, if you superimpose, then you can get a certain kind of pulse, right, in time domain. But if you decompose into frequency domain, you can get a multiple frequency harmonics you will get. So that means this can be considered as a, what do you call that, superposition of many harmonics, many frequencies. So all harmonic frequency, sinusoidal frequency, sinusoidal signal, if you are just considering, and if you just superimpose, you can get this type of things. So that means all the frequency, all the harmonics means their function will be, again it will be written something like that, sine CT1 minus Z1, right? That type of function you have to express. Okay. Now, okay, this is what I said, that is actually explained here. Plane waves in a dispersive dielectric medium. So you might be knowing what is dispersive, meaning that any signal, if you decompose into components, frequency components, then you can write like this, right? ST equal to, as I say, that this omega I is it is sum over I. So different type of frequency omega I we are considering. I can be run from 1 to some 5, 3, 6 or 7 or maybe 10, even more. Okay. So these are the frequency, and it's a cosine function we have chosen here. And each of these frequency components, they will have some kind of initial phase, say delta. All you add them with certain weightage, then you get a time dependent. That is actually Fourier expansion, you can say that. ST is expanded into Fourier things. Whatever the, depending on the signal shapes, everything, you can decompose into harmonics, right? So it is mentioned there, ith frequency component, where omega I equal to just a linear frequency, this thing. So assuming this signal radiating only along positive z direction, let us forget about what is going on the negative direction. Negative direction it can propagate, but we are assuming that somehow it is stopped, blocked, or it is somehow boundary condition you have created. So we can directly write the space and time dependent signal SZT. You see, this is at z equal to 0. Now, if you just try to find out what is the thing at z, so we introduce another z dependent function, omega I. This is Wi, this is omega I. You should differentiate, they are different basically. Wi and omega it, beta iz plus delta I. So as a function of z, you just introduce this thing, additional value beta I. So if you just a little bit modify that one, just take beta I common, then you are introducing VPI. That means this is nothing but omega y by beta I. Beta I you are taking out, that VPI t minus z. And here also I think it's a kind of delta I we are keeping as it is, right? Now this VPI means omega I by beta I. That is what we have expressed here. That is how omega it will be coming. And that can be expressed as velocity. Okay. Omega I beta is the called phase velocity of each of these frequency component, and that is nothing but 1 over velocity. Whenever you are talking about velocity, that mu epsilon, and this mu and epsilon, they are actually frequency dependent. Why? You know, any material medium, it's a kind of epsilon and mu come from some kind of dipole moment, dipole magnetic moment and dipole electric moment. So that moment actually depends on frequency, because depending on the frequency, how the electron, for example, attached to atom or a molecule, depending on that, this mu and epsilon comes. So if it's a kind of capacitance and inductance, I said, no, epsilon and mu, but this capacitance and inductance, it depends on material property, how fast it is responding, all those type of natures come into picture. So they can be frequency dependent. If this mu and epsilon values are frequency dependent, then that material is called a dispersive material. So that means different frequency will see different mu and epsilon, and they will see different velocity. So if this signal is composed of multiple frequencies, and each frequency sees material with a different dielectric constant and permeability, or what do you call that, mu r and epsilon r, then each of this signal will travel with different velocity. Then the shape of this signal, whatever represented here, that will not be maintained, because if all signals, they are traveling with the same velocity, all frequency component, then there is no question of changing the shape. But if they are traveling with a different velocity, then their shape will be changed. So in the dispersive medium, you will be seeing that this signal will be changed. That is what I wanted to tell you here. Okay, right. I think yes, go ahead.
What exactly do you mean by dispersive medium? Like you're describing this sort of medium as dispersive? Or?
Any material medium. So whenever I said that you have a mu and epsilon, right? They are coming out of, in free space, they are mu naught and epsilon naught, right? Nothing is there, but because light, electromagnetic wave travels in free space, right? It travels in free space, and then free space you have to characterize with a distributed capacitance and inductance, right? Mu 0 epsilon 0. But if it is a material medium, that mu 0 epsilon 0 will be changed to mu and epsilon, because the material actually contributes this polarization P. You remember that what I explained here? Polarization. This polarization is there. So this polarization means that is actually some kind of, whenever you are applying electric field, depending on the electric field, this polarization will be there. Higher the electric field, this polarization will be more, because just imagine any electron attached to an atom. Now you apply electric field in a certain direction. Then what will happen? Electron is relatively lighter, so it will try to, normally it is homogeneously surrounded by the atom, right? And if electric field is there, the electron will little bit pull along the direction of the opposite to the electric field, right? So in that case, you create a dipole moment. That means the center of mass of the electrons is not at the same position of the center mass of the positive nucleus, right? So in that case, you get a dipole moment. That dipole moment actually depends on this spatial characteristics of the chi, right? So again, this go ahead.
Sir, we had a class now at 12 o'clock.
Okay, I just conclude this thing. Yeah. So that is actually called a dielectric constant. Now this dielectric constant, if this electric field oscillating over a frequency, then you have to take some kind of averaging effect at that particular frequency, right? So that particular frequency, your this 1 plus chi, or susceptibility, or dielectric constant epsilon r, mu r, they can be different. If your electric field is oscillating at different frequency, the material will respond differently. That is accounted by the mu and epsilon. And when mu and epsilon are different, corresponding frequency will travel with different velocity, omega I beta I. So when they are traveling with a different velocity, that is called dispersion. You can recollect that why this white light falling on a prism, they are separated into 7 different colors. Because material glass inside, all this frequency, they travel with a different velocity. And to adjust that velocity, they have to be separated because their phase front will be changed. So that is called dispersion. Okay. So that dispersion actually can cause your signal, even though source is emitting a certain pulse, but as it propagates in a dispersive material medium, that pulse will be changed because the pulse is combination of different frequency, and different frequency travels with different velocity. That is called dispersion. So I am now at ninth slide, and tomorrow I'll be continuing from here. Okay. If you have any questions, you can just send mails. I think Arnob and Ram Mohan will try to clarify that thing. We'll be giving some kind of assignment based on this whatever the fundamental thing. I'm a little bit going slow here because if your foundation is clear, later on we can go very fast. Okay. And if you feel that this is not necessary, I can jump. You can just tell me also. I think if all these things, you know, suppose I don't know what is the level, but I am sure that many of you have problems with this type of foundation. So I thought that I should cover it up first. Okay. All right. See you tomorrow then.